Hi, Christina. Thank you so much for accepting this invitation and being a guest in the Life of a Social Media Manager podcast. How are you?
I am good. It's a beautiful Friday morning in London, and I'm just well into my way on a Friday so far. So glad to be here.
Good. Before to jump in and discuss about your career journey and how you succeed at leading the social media team in UK, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Yep. I am. My accent is American. I'm from the middle of America. I'm from Kansas, and I've lived in London for almost 3 years now, and I've worked for VMLY&R for 11 years, almost 11 years now. And I started in Kansas with the company in Kansas City as an intern, actually. And it was kind of the beginning of social media, I suppose, in terms of agencies really setting up a capability around it. And my life has kind of moved along with my career. I went to New York next after that with VMLY&R and led the social team there, and then had the opportunity to move over to London a few years ago with the company. And it's been amazing to get some international experience and help develop the practice here in London as well.
Yeah, and I think that working with different markets, I think it's quite challenging because you started from your hometown, then moved to New York, and now in London, which I think that there are some market specificities for each of those countries, regions where you're working.
Absolutely. I think everybody should have global international experience under their belt at some point in time. I think in the US specifically, it's such a different world in terms of marketing than it is when you get into other markets, smaller markets who may not have the budgets that we were so lucky to have in the US in terms of marketing dollars. So that in itself is a major adjustment, because what you can do on social in US in comparison to what you can do in some of the smaller markets here across EMEA, or even within just the UK, is completely different. So how you strategize and think about building the brand, activating the brand, has to be completely different, because you don't have all the money in the world to throw at it. So even just from, kind of reshaping your approach to how you set up a brand or how you activate a brand in social, that international experience can be such a good thing to get you out of your comfort zone and make you think a bit differently. So I've been very thankful to get that.
Yeah. So you said that you started working as a marketing intern and now you are head of social for the VMLY and R UK. Can you describe a little bit this job role?
Yeah. And the marketing intern was maybe the funnest role because it was way less pressure. But no, I've enjoyed kind of all of my stages of my career through social with VMLY&R. And I actually think if I look back to the beginning and the importance of where I started and where I am now in my career, that foundation of I was a community manager, and as an intern, I did community management for Coors Flight and Coors Banquet back in America, and I literally had my fingers on the keyboard and was responding to the community. I was building the content calendars. I was shooting content for Coors Banquet out on my family's ranch, and like literally taking cans of beers and taking a picture on my phone, because it was 2012, back in like the early days of social. But I think that foundation of really getting into the nitty gritty of social is so important to then help you be a leader within social, and to kind of the role that I have today, which is a lot more about developing a team, building and growing that capability within the office, connecting with clients, and selling our proposition. But to be able to do that, you really have to understand, the ins and outs of social. And I think because I started as a community manager and I know what that can feel like, and what the expectations and the pressures are within that role, it makes me better at my role today, and better at building a team, understanding and growing the capability, and helping people get to where they want to go through social as well, because I've kind of done every part of the journey within social.
Yeah, yeah. And you totally right here, because that's why when I started this podcast, I wanted to highlight the challenges that you have and how important is to start with a community manager and to start with writing comments, planning the content, and putting the foundation of understanding the social media. Because if you, I don't know, if your expectation are to go directly to manage bigger accounts or stuff like that, I think it's important, especially for the entry level, to start with the basics, to better understand the trends, how the social media evolves, and not only the trends, but also what's in it for them when it comes to the messages you have to create on social media for a specific brand. So it's important to start from zero to become lead teams on social and so on. I know that you have a focus on social media strategy, and there is a split between the people who just are doing the social media manager and then they want to become a social media strategist. Can you describe what skills you need to develop to obtain this job role?
Yeah. I think there are a couple different, well, there's probably by now multiple different career paths you can take within social media. There definitely are multiple. But when I was starting out, it was kind of, there were not maybe quite as many routes you could go. And so you might start as a community manager, and you may grow as a community manager into more of a creative role where you're really honing in on bringing the brand to life through tone of voice, through content, through how you're engaging. And that's one path that you could take. Mm-hmm. You could move into a strategy role that is more about setting the vision for the brand and social, defining the platforms, defining how we're connecting with our audience, and meeting the objectives that you're setting as a brand. And that role, I think, is sort of just where I naturally started to go into, and I probably do less strategy work for brands and more management work now in my current role. But I enjoy that. I really love thinking about how do you connect a brand with an audience, social, and what's the best platform, what's the best message, what's the right way to do that. So I think, you kind of have to think about in the beginning, which way do you want to go in terms of creative strategy, and then developing your career to make sure that you're headed towards that direction. I think in either route, though, in social in general, being curious and kind of being always wanting to learn, and kind of always on the tip of your toes, understanding what's next or being ready for what's next, is so much part of a social media manager, a social media strategist. That is core to what it takes to be a good social media expert, I suppose. So being curious is a core trait to that, I think. Being scrappy, I suppose, is another good way to put it. You have to be able to quickly learn, put together your thinking and get that in front of teams, clients. And you may not have all the answers all the time, because most of the time I do not have all the answers, but I'm willing to listen to a million podcasts or research quickly online, or grab my phone and go down to the restaurant that we're doing social media for and capture content with my team. You just kind of have to be scrappy and willing to put the pieces together when you don't have all the pieces sometimes. And the kind of other element, I think, is being organized. You can prepare, but of course everything in social is always going to change, but being organized will always set you up for success within this role. So knowing kind of all of the foundations of the brand, making sure that you try to, keep your calendar and all kind of the nitty gritty things of social managed and organized is crucial. And then especially like in a strategy role, oftentimes in an agency, you might not just work on one brand, you might be across a lot of brands. And so at some points in time, I could be working on 20 different brands. And so if I'm not organized and make sure that I know what's going on in each of those categories, then I would never be able to be successful in that. So I think, that is a core trait. And I think the beauty of social media is that in our generation, we live and breathe it every day. And it's, you'd be hard pressed to find somebody who doesn't use social media regularly. And so what I would say is anybody can be a social media practitioner if you're willing to get curious, get scrappy, and kind of understand it from the consumer and business perspective. But you can learn it. It's not to downgrade the work that we all do, but like you can learn how to be a social media strategist or a community manager and grow from there. So I think I would just also add that maybe one of the smartest people that I've ever had on my team back in the States had no background of marketing, had no background of social media, nothing like that. And he ended up being, one of the brightest talents that I've ever worked with. He came from a totally non-traditional field, and we hired him because he was a comedian, and we thought he could bring to life a tone of voice in a great way. And he has just, been truly one of the greatest talents. So I think if you're not in social media and you're curious and you want to be, where there's a will, there's a way. It's easy to learn, and you can definitely do it.
Yeah, and I know that I have some friends, for example, in the States where they did a career change. For example, when they have, 40 years, almost 40 years, they change their careers and become a social media manager, working as a freelance and managing multiple accounts for different brands. So I think the age, it doesn't matter. If you want, and if you have this, and if you want this job role, there is a way to, as you said, if there is a will, there is a way. So you can do this as well. I have a question regarding the teams that you have, actually the skills that you are looking at when you're recruiting people in your team. So you need to have the creative part, and you need to have the analytical part. Is there anything else that you are looking when recruiting people?
Yeah, it definitely depends on the role. I have a open role right now that is really focused on creative, and I am looking for, and I think actually I'm seeing this a lot more in the roles that I'm recruiting for, somebody who knows TikTok really well and can create TikTok content, can concept TikTok content, and can grow our community for our brands there. So that is something that I think you'll probably see a lot of agencies, a lot of brands looking for, and not really a capability that many agencies or brands have figured out how to set up. And so that I see a lot in job listings right now. So creativity, in the sense of understanding a platform specifically like TikTok, and then being able to create, concept, execute across that. So it's definitely a type of role that I see a lot right now. And then if it's a more senior role, which we hire for, quite often, then you definitely need the strategic skills as well. So I look for somebody who can come in, see the big picture of what's going on with the brand, and understand holistically what the brand needs to do in social to meet their business objectives, to evolve their current presence, or oftentimes for some brands, set up a whole new strategy, set up a whole new presence. Maybe they're not even active in social to begin with. So that kind of higher level vision, and being able to define a strategy for a brand at a more senior position is absolutely crucial. And often in those senior roles, depending again on what the job is, you're less creative and more strategic in setting up the brand and ensuring that kind of all of the cogs in the wheel are turning with your community managers, your content creators, your analysts, etc.
It's interesting that now we see jobs based on a platform. So basically, the ones that can manage, for example, TikTok, it's different than the person who manage LinkedIn or Twitter. I think it's a different mindset, and as you said, it's important to know the platform, to be present, understand the algorithms and how TikTok works. So
yeah, it is. I think we'll see more and more of it as we move into different spaces, different types of platforms that are well outside of the kind of norm. I think I won't even get into the topic of the metaverse, but you'll obviously need some specialized skills within your teams, within your brands, within your agencies to be able to meet the needs of the new platforms and the new ways that people are connecting. So I think those specialized skills are only going to increasingly show up in the market.
Let's move a little bit and discuss about clients and how you build trusted clients. I know that you work it with a lot of brands, and you spend more than 6 years focused on Wendy's. And I know that I saw the presentation that you did at Social Media Week in London last autumn with Wendy's. How do you build trusted clients? Because keeping a client that for so long tell something about the way you are doing things, and the team at the VMLY&R is doing things there in London. So what's the key ingredients here?
Yeah, it's such an important one. I think the work that we did on Wendy's in the US and that the team is still doing in the US on Wendy's with VMLY&R there, it was magical. And it was magical because we had such a great client relationship. And I think that work would never have gotten done if the client agency relationship wasn't what it was. It was one of, trust and understanding and appreciation on all fronts. And without that, great work does not get done. So it's really important that you make that a key part of your approach into how you service your clients. It does not happen overnight. It's something that takes time and effort. And so I think, it's a two-way street because the agency can give and give and give and, try to create that, but the client also has to be willing to trust and learn and grow together. And I think that was what was so great about the Wendy's relationship, was the client was so willing to take that journey with us and knew that it was something that if they didn't put in the effort as well to trust and forgive when we make mistakes and move forward with us, then then we would have never succeeded like we did. I think, some of the things that I personally try to do with clients is just treat them like a human. They are humans at the end of the day, and they're under immense pressure. And so if you can humanize your approach with them and, not just make it a formal client call, a client relationship. And of course you need to treat them professionally, but humanizing that and treating them like real people, caring about them, celebrating their birthdays with them. We had our, we had one of our Wendy's clients in a couple weeks ago, and it was her birthday, and had a cake brought in, and, just making sure that you actually treat them like a human, like you would want to be treated as well, can go really long ways in helping them get to know you and understand who you are and why you care about working on their brand. So I think that, that aspect, human relationship, human connection, especially in social media, is so important. And then I think maybe the other core element of it is trust and forgiveness. And so our clients have to trust us to do what's right for the brand, but they also have to be able to forgive. And same for us. We have to forgive them if they make a mistake. If you don't have that element, if you just trust and you're not able to forgive, then you'll never be able to make a mistake and learn and grow from it. So that forgiveness of, I know things aren't going to go right all the time, and we're going to move on and move forward from it, is a really key element to building and maintaining trust over time.
And I think that as long as brands want to be on TikTok, they have to be, it's important to have trust in the services that you are offering, but also to forgiving sometimes that the numbers are not the ones that I expected, because maybe if it's a new brand, it's a learning process for everyone. What are the key elements to build success on social media?
It probably, it definitely really depends on what your objectives are and kind of what aspect you're looking at within social. So there's obviously paid, there's obviously organic. And so it really depends on your brand and your objectives and how you're measuring success. So I'd always start there. What are the objectives for the brand? And then how do we set up, a framework to make sure that we are measuring success within the work that we're doing for the brand. If it's a paid objective, paid success, and you're meeting those through paid amplification and paid media, then that might look like sales or awareness or consideration. And paid is always the best tool in the shed to meet those business objectives. So without a strong media plan, driving sales and awareness and consideration for a brand, consistently over time is going to be really challenging. You see some brands on TikTok, especially with like TikTok made me buy it, and some of those big trends that we've seen pop up there from a commerce perspective. Happen, like Little Moons, I think, was a great example here, that drove an insane amount of sales by getting discovered within TikTok. But oftentimes without paid, things like that might just be a one-off. So paid will always be the most tool in the shed to drive those business objectives, and to measure success in that. It's often linked to sales, awareness, trial, consideration. But in organic, success could look like growing and developing your community, building those one-to-one, one-to-many connections with your audience for the brand. And that is a incredibly important part of social as well. It's the social part of social media. And if you're missing that, then you're not harnessing the full power of social media, which I think, sometimes you see brands get lopsided and go too heavy and paid and forget about the value of social from the community building aspect. So it might look like growing a community. It might look like engagement and increasing, those engagement metrics, or it might look like changing sentiment of a brand. So trying to grow more positive sentiment within your consumer base and relevancy within culture. So definitely depends on organic or paid, and probably a combination of both, hopefully, for brands.
Yeah. Should we start with paid first, or then you build and then add organic, or there is the right path here, or depends on every brand?
It definitely depends on every brand. I think I've seen it work both ways. And the driving factor should always be, what type of resource do you have? What is your budget, and what are you looking to do within social? If you are purely looking to drive sales, then paid is going to be your best bet to do that. And most likely a dark paid approach is going to help you do that, drive people to purchase your product consistently over time. And maybe you only have the budget to focus on that one aspect. So I would say put all of your money into driving it through paid. But if you have the budget to be able to maintain a consistent presence and you want to build community, having an organic presence, can help you do that. But I've also seen brands who want to build that community and want to have an organic presence, but they don't have the resources to create ongoing content or to do community management regularly. And so what ends up happening is they set up an organic account and they can't maintain it. And so they're actually not reaping the benefits of, having that organic community because they can't feed out content. They can't engage with anybody because they don't have the resources to keep it active. So I think if you're in that camp, then again, you probably shouldn't have an organic account. You should think about a paid strategy, and just focus your dollars there to work harder for you. So it really comes down to what resource do you have, and then evaluating what can I do and what's the biggest impact I can make. How can I be more effective and more efficient in my social media based on what resource I have and what my objectives are.
Okay. Why do people share brands posts? For example, I know that I saw a lot of posts from Wendy's. Why they share this this post?
Yeah, I when somebody asks a question about how somebody behaves in social, how a person would behave in social, I think about myself first and foremost, because after all, we're all on social personally. I'm on there for work all the time, but at the end of the day, I'm using it personally myself. So why would I share something as a brand? And why would my mom share something as a brand, or my sister, and why would people share something as a brand as humans? And so I think about that before I create a piece of content or strategy for a brand. What would make me want to share? What would make our consumer want to share? And generally, people share content because it provides some kind of value to them. It's resonating with them on some sort of deeper level. But it at the end of the day, it's that value that somebody sees in a piece of content. That value could be because it makes them look really cool with their community. It could be that it makes them look really smart, or maybe they learned something that they want other people in their community to learn, a different perspective, a different opinion, a piece of health information that's going to make them live a better life. It could make them feel creative. You could be giving them, the tools, quote unquote, to be more creative. It might be a filter that, the brand creates and people share it because they feel creative, they feel cool. But it also could be that they're getting something out of the content. For instance, like a free product, you see people share contests on social like crazy because there's the chance to win something. So there's some sort of value that is perceived by the consumer that is going to help them look better, feel better, gain something within their own personal community.
So basically, it's important to, give them something informative for them, entertain them in some way, and as you said, in the end, to give them value. When it comes to the future of social media, what are your thoughts here? Because now the social media landscape changed a lot. We have TikToks, we have shorts, Instagram Reels. So basically, short form video. It's getting more and more attention for every brand. What's next?
Oh gosh, that's a good question. I think you can't ever predict what's going to happen, ever. I kind of trends pieces. I love reading trends pieces because it helps me dream about what's possible in the future. But I think to predict what's going to happen in the year ahead or the years ahead is probably not realistic, really, because the world in general, but the world of social as well, changes so quickly that you could never predict, that what's happened with Twitter over the past year would have happened. I would never have guessed that at the beginning of last year. So I think, it is all changing so quickly, and to predict is maybe not the best use of time. But what I do think you can do is look at what's happening within the world of social and what we've seen happen over the past year and the way people are behaving, companies are behaving. And you can use that to set yourself up for success in the best way possible, and start to kind of think about what we know to be true and what we think might happen because of that. I think we can all agree that whatever the future of social looks like, it will be richer, more deeper experiences for people. It's going to be more immersive. It's going to allow people to communicate in more personal and immersive ways. So, whether that is through, some of the metaverse types of technology that Meta is specifically focusing on, or if it's even through just messaging apps, it's going to get more and more immersive. And I already think that everything is social. You're walking down the street, and social media will be everywhere and everything that you. So everything is already social to some degree, but I think that's going to absolutely be more and more true. And the immersive aspects of it is going to make the world that we live in, feel more and more social, more and more connected as we move along. And hopefully it makes, social media and the connections that we make there as people and as brands feel more human at the end of the day, because there won't be the same kind of barriers. The technology will be better, and the types of communication that we have now as brands and consumers will feel hopefully more human, more immersive.
Yeah, I'm agree with you to be more humor, less polished content, and we already see this trend on TikTok. It's not sure if it's a trend or how people can have a deeper connection with their audience. Okay, so I'll continue with the fire up session. So I have some words for you. You have to choose between one or two. So text or video?
Okay, I'll clarify first. I'm going to answer these from my personal preference and not a brand perspective, because I think my answers would be wildly different if I was thinking about how I guide a brand.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Your personal experience, right?
Perfect. Text. I'm a text kind of person.
Reels or TikTok?
Reels. I love Instagram.
Online or offline?
Oh, that one is honestly really hard. I think offline.
Okay. Thank you so much. Who should be my next guest on this podcast?
Oh gosh, that is a tough question. There's so many smart people who work within social, who work on brands that are social. I think I'll just give one off the top of my head because I was just watching a piece of content this morning. Upworthy on social media is one of my favorite accounts because we all need more positivity and good in the world and in our daily lives, and especially on social, sometimes it can get negative and and be a bad space for people. But I think the account Upworthy I love following it because it's a bit of fresh air, and they've done so well to find human connections and human stories that make their content so engaging, and add a breath of fresh air to people's feeds every day. So if you can get in contact with them and talk about their approach for curating content and finding these incredible human stories, I would certainly tune into that.
Okay, thank you. Where can people find you?
LinkedIn is probably the best bet. Definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. I like to share articles and interesting things that I'm seeing within the social space on there pretty regularly. So absolutely the best place. I'm more of a lurker in my personal social media accounts. So I do a lot of looking around at content, but don't post as much on like a Twitter, for instance. So LinkedIn's the best bet.
Everyone will find the link in the description wherever they listen to this podcast. So thank you so much for being with me, Christina, and sharing these insights of how to start as a marketing intern and now lead the team, and how to build trust with clients, and the success on social media. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I've enjoyed it. Have a good day.